Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Ordinary People Pod. My name is Angel and I'm one of your co-hosts.
Hey guys, I'm Kathy. I'm your other co-host, and this is a podcast about ordinary people doing extraordinary things for God. Through conversations with church members, community leaders, and pastors, we hope this brings encouragement to your own journey.
Now let's get into the episode. Here's a question for you.
What you got?
What, and this conversation is going to be about, the whole thing. But how do you come to a place of trusting somebody? Like, what does it take for you to trust? Probably even a better question would be, who do you trust?
Okay.
Or why is it so difficult for you to trust? I'm not calling you out. These are just random questions in my mind. Yeah. Why are you such a...
I know. The truth is coming out.
There it is.
I think for me, it's more of what people do to lose my trust. It's not so much of like, what do people have to do or to earn my trust?
Yeah.
It's more of like, I'm right off giving you not the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that like I'm genuinely thinking you're a good person, and until you show me otherwise, that you have challenges and you're not truthful with things, or you've done something to
So you would say you're an easy to trust kind of person?
yeah, I don't feel like unless you've done something to me,
Yeah.
and then even then I'm not going to not love you. I may put some boundaries with how much I extend myself to you, but in the grand scheme of things, I still like love you as a person. But I don't feel like I think as I was growing up, my mom used to always, feel like friends would take advantage of me. And she would always tell me that I need to not be such a forgiving and, just watch myself and things like that. But I've always had a sense of just loving people regardless. And I don't just not trust unless they give me a reason.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, it's like I feel like you had no childhood trauma then. Your life was pretty easy.
It has not.
No.
I have definitely learned a lot growing up. But I think that where I get a lot of that from is my grandmother, my mom's mom, was she was just open-hearted to people.
I mean, but the thing is, like, what makes it so difficult to trust then? Like, you as a person are very kind of outgoing as far as people.
Yeah.
If you show me otherwise. And I could say that I'm very similar to that, but there's just some people that,
Oh, for sure.
and so I think looking at that,
Yes.
not the people you get along with,
Yes.
not the people that you click with.
They're
Those are easy
Yeah.
people to trust.
Yes.
I think it's like in a relationship that you deem that has to work to that level of trust. Like, what does that look like? And why would you, if there's a person in your life that you're kind of like, all right, this is going to take, what does that look like to you? What does that person have to do to get them? And, I'm just kind of thinking here.
I do have people in my life that the trust, like, I have set those boundaries with. Because saying like there are no people at all that
and that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's loving everybody.
I'm not, I think that the conversation is, that's what I'm saying. The conversation is those people that they have to work. Because like for me, for you to get around my children, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like that's the level of trust that I'm talking about. Not the
in the inner circle.
yeah, like in the inner circle of things. Like what would it take for you to trust them and for them to get to that point?
Yeah. So I've had people that I have had to set those boundaries with that I definitely don't extend myself to. And if they wanted to be able to be brought back into the inner circle,
Yeah.
then, I think some of the things that would need to happen is obviously conversation
Yep.
and um, understanding how we got there to begin with, and forgiveness, obviously.
What are some of the emotions behind that for you personally?
For me personally?
Yeah, that like explain, like if you can try to go through the emotions behind letting a person that are working their way into that inner circle. And I get that there's emotions of like there's distrust already with that person, but what are the emotions it goes in your life
Yeah.
in order to kind of bring them back into that?
Well, I think you're um, very cautious of your conversations with them.
Yep.
And because I have had um someone, you think of people as you're talking and you're like, okay, like I can remember a situation where you've given and given and given of yourself, and this person has completely just lied to you
Yeah.
about. You look back and you're like, was there ever any truth
Yep.
to anything that you said?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those conversations haven't happened, as far as like trying to get back in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they did, um, we're all human, right?
Yeah.
There's anger behind it
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's like, you did all of this for what?
Mm-hmm.
What did you gain out of it?
Yeah.
Um, and then you also, on the other side of it, you're like, okay, but Jesus,
Yeah.
is, forgiving, and you want to still love them, and I still have love for that person, but I have absolutely drawn lines because we have um, mutual friends,
Yeah. Yeah.
so to say.
So it's easy to kind of draw lines with people, especially when they've done you wrong, especially when you just have lost all trust with
Yeah.
them. It's hard for them to come back to that
Mhm.
status, right? Or come back to that inner circle.
Yeah.
Um, but the reason I'm asking this is because now we have to shift to the true relationship we have, which is with God,
Yes.
which has never failed,
Mm-mm.
will never fail.
Right.
But there are situations in your life that you blame God for.
Mm.
Now, because you blame God for 'em,
Yes.
now that trust has been broken.
Mm-hmm.
And so, honestly, we got to talk about that situation and why is it so difficult for us to trust God?
Yeah.
I do believe that at the core of all this mistrust that we have in our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, is fear.
Yeah.
So, why are you
Well,
afraid of?
you don't want to. Well, you don't want to be hurt again, because in the grand scheme of things, like, your feelings are hurt because someone's lied to you or they've done something to you.
Yeah.
And so you're fearful of all that happening again. So why open yourself up to it
Yeah.
and set the boundaries that, okay, you can get you can get this far,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to let you come into here.
Yeah.
because then that's the line that's drawn that I know that I can guard.
Yep.
That I'm not going to allow you to do the same thing again. But in essence, that doesn't really control anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can happen regardless.
Yeah.
So it's whether you put yourself in those situations again, and it's always hard.
Yeah. And again, I think that goes with people itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to, I guess, bring the conversation to is like trusting God,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a difficult thing to do. Now, if we could think of it, or if there's a situation that's come up on your mind, has there ever been a time where, in a way, you've blamed God for a situation? And how did you get to a place of trusting God?
I think for a while, I had a hard time with trusting God in the process of having kids.
Yeah.
Because it was so difficult. And you see your friends over here that can get pregnant at the drop of a hat. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
you're like, dude, like, I don't understand. Like, we're doing everything right. We're praying about it. We're, trusting God. And month after month after month, and you're like, God, why? Like, why is this not happening?
Yeah.
And you get mad about it. And you're
Yeah.
like angry at him.
Yeah.
Because you're like, these things are supposed to just happen.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be that difficult.
Yep.
And, it's years and years of waiting. And you're like, okay, God, when are you going to show up? Like, is this ever going to happen? And then
when did that turn though? Because listen, you got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but for a while there, even between the middle one and the youngest one, and even, I mean, all of them are huge age gap.
Yeah.
But was there a moment where you came to an end of yourself, right? Like that moment of like, okay,
Yeah.
I've accepted the fact the kids aren't going to be a thing, and I have to trust God.
Yeah.
And build that relationship.
Yeah. And you're gonna make me cry on the podcast, like,
It's not my intention.
We have been going through the adoption process early on, and we were trying to adopt a baby.
Yeah.
And still like praying that even through this, like, we're still gonna end up pregnant at some point. Because you still want biological children.
Yeah. To holding on to that.
Yeah. And God decided to give us a teenager.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, this is different. And I think in the process of all that, like we're like, okay, God, like whatever you want to do, because our path is not yours. Like it's your path, but we're trying to control it. And a year later, we got pregnant.
So a year after you adopted?
Uh-huh.
Was there ever a time in that year span where you just like, that's it? Like I said, I'm not gonna get pregnant.
Yeah.
But complete surrender is what I'm getting at.
100%. Because at that point, we're like, okay, this is what's in the cards for us. This is how God was going to give us what we wanted.
Yeah.
A kid. It just didn't look the way we thought it looked like.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, God, this is where we're at. It's not in the cards for us to have biological children, and we're okay with that because he was the perfect fit.
Yeah.
Into our family.
Yeah.
He was just like the missing piece of the puzzle. And then, bam.
Yeah. I think that is a huge missing piece in our lives, which is surrendering.
Oh, yeah.
because it's so difficult.
Mhm.
Because you and I are taught that surrender is something that it just doesn't happen,
Right.
especially in our culture,
Yeah.
if we're being honest.
Mhm.
And we are super competitive
Yeah.
people. And whether you think of it or not, like that is it. And so we bring that and immigrate that into our relationship with God. And he's saying, I need your complete surrender.
Right.
I need you to get to that point of surrender.
Yeah.
Because it's only then where trust starts being built.
Yep.
But there's fear, there's the emotion of fear, there's the emotion of anger, there's the emotion, there's like a lot of emotions. But at the end of the day, you have to come to a complete surrender.
Yep.
To then allow God to start working.
Mhm.
And that is a very difficult place to get into.
It is.
Like it's not, it's easy to talk about it
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
I think as you say, like we have accepted.
Yeah.
And then God gave us a kit.
Yeah. But in the process, you're still struggling.
Yep.
So it's not like, okay, I surrendered and like, boom, everything's perfect. You're still through it. Like, I think like it's a constant surrender.
Mm,
It's not just
that's
a
good.
one-time situation. It's over and over and over again because you have to keep reminding yourself that, okay, God, it's not our plan, it's yours. Whatever you're wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And if this is where we're at, this is where we're at. But it's a constant. So,
Yeah.
um, it wasn't like, okay, he came into our lives and we're like, okay. No, it was
Yeah.
a constant reminder to ourselves, like, this is where we're at, and this is the path that, like, God has blessed us every day with this kid,
Yeah.
and we're okay with that.
I think you hit it. I mean, you hit it right there where it's like it's a it's an everyday thing.
Mhm.
And it's difficult. It's difficult because there's a lot of things that we like to control in our lives. Um there's a lot of things we can do to control that if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And I truly believe, honestly, I truly believe that even 2025 is for me is going to be another year of surrender. And it's one of those feelings that I go to God and it has been like, God, but I've given myself to you
Right.
constantly. And so I have this like feeling and I feel like for me 2025 is going to be a year of complete trust. There's a lot of things that I could do and there's a lot of things that I have done to have a safety blanket when it comes to my faith.
Yeah.
Because it's easier that I've experienced and I don't know what I've built through the years. But it's easier sometimes to depend on my strength because I get immediate results.
Right.
With God is a little bit different because I again I try to go ahead of a lot of the things that he's doing. And so it's for me at the core of trusting is fear.
Mhm.
Like deep rooted is like I don't know what tomorrow would look
Right.
like. And he's telling me you need to trust me with your family, with your wife, with your finances. And I'll be honest, it's a little harder
Mhm.
to do to get to a place of complete trust.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this that there's been times, there's memories of in seasons where God has taken me
Mhm.
to get a level of trust and another level of trust and another level of trust because it hasn't been my walk with God hasn't been complete surrender.
Yeah.
Like there's things that like I will surrender God,
Right.
but I will take this.
I'm gonna pick it back up.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick this up from it. I'm gonna pick that up from it, and I'm gonna because I'm not ready to
Right.
give that yet.
Yeah.
It's hard. Um, one of the one of that was and I'm not gonna share my wife's side of that, but one of the things I would say is that Jenny is a person that is not good at surprises, like at all. she can't surprise me. I know my birthday's coming up. You know, like I could see the Amazon order. You know, like, um,
Like, wait.
yeah, it's like you're horrible at surprises. I like to be surprised. I mean, be honest with you. I like to be surprised, but this woman that God gave me is just not good at it.
Mm.
And with that said, I could honestly say there's one time Jenny has surprised me that has completely taken me like
Mhm.
left field, just
Yeah.
came out of nowhere. We were at a friend's kid's birthday party, Chuck E. Cheese. And as we were kind of celebrating, all of a sudden we get to the gifts part and they started giving gifts to the kid,
Mhm.
right? And we're celebrating. But then all of a sudden she turns around and gives me one of those gifts. And so I'm like all confused because I'm like, this this is unexpected. Why am I getting a gift? And so I thought she was just wanting me to give it to her, the little kid, right? And she's like, no, this is for you. And all of a sudden all my friends turned around, they're like, open it. And so I begin to open it, and inside this gift was a onesie
Mm.
um that said dad. And I was so like completely taken out of it because I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like it's not like her and I were like, let's have kids. Like no, it was a moment of like fully like
Mm.
I had no clue. Like there was a little stick in there. I I had never seen one. Like it's
What is that?
yeah. Like what's happening? Like why is there a onesie that says dad on there and a stick? Like it shocked me. I'm telling you, it shocked me. Um, and that was the first time and only time where Jenny has surprised me. And I remember feeling every emotion.
Yeah.
I was happy, yes, but I was very nervous.
Mhm.
How can I now take care of somebody? And I have no clue how to even take care of myself. Uh, how do how do I begin? Like it's not a manual where it's like, okay, I'm freaking out. People are like congratulating me at this. I was not ready to have a kid.
Mhm.
Not at that time.
Yeah.
And so I was just super, super in shock.
Mm.
W- w- When all things like this emotion just started happening to me, it was just like we go to the ultrasound and you hear this heartbeat.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, all of a sudden, that emotion of like, um, anxious and,
Mhm.
and fear, like, um, turn into love.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like, that is awesome. Like to hear the heartbeat. And I remember it, like the heartbeat is so fast. And I'm like, why is it so fast? Well,
Yeah.
apparently that's how it is.
Yes.
And I'm like, but that's crazy. And so I'm learning this stuff, and I'm in love with this child.
Mhm.
That moment, the heartbeat
Yeah.
starts, and I'm just like, this is so, so cool. And I'm in love with that whole idea. And then, so going through all this roller coaster of emotions, we then just, she not only s- does this in front of all of our friends, we go and announce it to the family. We tell, hey, you're going to be a grandfather. You're going to be a grandmother. And like we're building this thing up, and I'm like throughout that roller coaster of emotions, I'm building it, and I'm getting more in love with the idea, and I'm like, this is gonna be crazy. I cannot wait to meet this little guy. I'm just gonna be, and this roller coaster of emotion keeps building up, and um, a few weeks later, Jenny has an accident. She goes in the bathroom, not a physical accident. She just goes in the bathroom and she's bleeding. So I've never seen it before. I don't know what is this supposed to look like, what is not supposed to look like. I don't understand what's happening. I just go in a mode of action. And we gotta go. And we gotta keep going. And we gotta, go and where do we go other than the emergency room, right? And we're at the emergency room and they take us back there. But then now, like, my emotions again start going, and I'm just like, action time. That's what I'm doing. And as we are in the emergency room, I remember that they took us back and they put the ultrasound, and I hear the heartbeat again. And as I'm hearing the heartbeat, there is this like pressure of like the pressure that I had, like, kind of gets a little bit relief, a little bit. But as I'm hearing the heartbeat, I don't hear it the same way anymore. I'm hearing a little bit softer, and I don't understand why, because I've never had a kid. I'm trying to get the doctor to explain it to me, but the doctor wouldn't say anything, and no one is saying anything. And now I'm like, okay, what is happening? My wife is going through the same thing, and I can't even imagine being in her shoes, but the heartbeat just is fainting. And I think at that point, I knew that that was over. But I cannot show my emotions because my wife needs me. She needs my help. She needs me to be there for her. And so I'm still in this action mode. When we found out that the baby wasn't going to make it, the baby didn't make it. They go through this whole conversation with her, and I think the hardest thing is like, you got to go home and you got to let the body do what it's got to do. I was really tough for her. Um, and I'm just there, like, I'm kind of like in the whole midst of it is, it's not like I blame God for it. Like, I knew it wasn't God's fault. But um, I know that as everything kind of was happening, I sit in the couch and I'm just like, how can I trust you? Like, how can I trust you, God? If you just took me through all of this to show me what? Like, what was the purpose? And I'm kind of like now getting angry, and I'm just sitting in the couch, and a few weeks go by, and it's not like e- everyone kind of goes through it differently. My wife, of course, was a mess through the whole thing, and honestly, like, there was no tears from me. There was just like numbness. And I'm trying to help her out as best as I can, as best as I should. And I'm trying to, you know, I'm at the same time having conversations with God. And, at the all of a sudden, like a few weeks later, I go back to the same couch. She just walks in, and I just began bawling. And I was just like, okay, God, what's happening? I remember having the conversation of like, I'm gonna trust you. Like, I'm gonna trust you. But what this actually created in me was a fear. It was now I was just like, I didn't, like I said, I didn't blame God. I was angry at one point, but this conversation led me to say, okay, I cannot control. So it had to get to a point in my life where there's nothing, absolutely, I can't throw money at it. I can't throw anything at it. Only thing I could do is just give it to God and say, here it is. But I do believe that that situation, what it did, created in me fear. And the reason I say this is because um, afterwards, we got to talking, we healed, we as a couple went to God, and fully devoted ourselves to God. And now I was ready to like, let's do it. Like, okay. I love the feeling. Like, I cannot forget the feeling of hearing, you know, that baby's heartbeat. And then at the end of it all saying, God, like, you know why. And I'm thankful that my baby never went through pain, never understood what mean kids are, and anything that the world has to offer. A perfect being. And so, as we started getting prepared for our firstborn, you know, there was a lot of different situations that happened with Lucas as he was born, 6'1", 6'2", dropped to 5 something out, pounds. They went, the hospital went to freak mode because it was just like, and so now, again, now I'm experiencing, it's not, again, this, and I am fearful to lose my son. And that created so much like overprotecting of him. And then, my son is nonverbal, was nonverbal. And so I'm experiencing these things, and it's like this build of fear. And I was just like not ready to give my son to God. Like I remember going through the book, going through Genesis, reading Abraham and saying, "Give me your son," and Abraham saying, "Okay," and I'm like, "You asked me that, and I'm telling you right now, like that's not happening. I can't give you my son." And with all the things that happened with Lucas, it's just like I felt like for the first year, I held him always. Like that's how I put him to sleep. I had this thing that just from the beginning, where that came into an end of like again trusting fully God was with our second born, because now Levi is born, and Levi is born super healthy, super ready to go. Like everything that we did not experience with Lucas, as far as like there was no nurses coming in, there was no exams, there was nothing. Like Levi was a normal, what I guess supposed to be like healthy 100%. And so um I'm like saying that, like I still feel like I want to protect my sons, but like he's more independent. Like even as a baby, he's more independent. He's more alive. He's more like, like he's not fragile. And Lucas is fragile. And so he's more like, scrimmage and whatever. Like he's just moving all around. And I'm just like, okay. But again, the core of everything for me was fear, and that brought it out. And the person out of my two sons, I expected Levi to always be healthy more, right? Like I like that, the expectation of that. I think when it came down to God bringing me into this season of I need you to trust me, because those 2 years that I've had Lucas were a lot more of like I'm gonna keep this one, like I'm gonna surrender this part of my life,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna surrender this one. I'm not ready to surrender that. Like
Yeah.
I just like it. And Levi was born, and um, Levi at this point is 2 years old, and God is taking my wife and I through a season of like, again, surrender your gifts, surrender your talents, surrender everything. My wife is flourishing in her ministry, and I'm seeing this, and I'm like, okay, well, again, I'm surrendering different things of my life. And then I felt God telling me, you need to surrender your children. That was the toughest thing I had to do, but it took God to one night get Levi, woke up to the sound of him grasping for air. And that was, again, I will never forget the heartbeat. I will never forget how he was grasping for air and Jenny freaking out. And I'm trying to, again, go back to the numbness, go back to the feeling, go back to all of that. And it's like, okay, we need to have action here, and calling 911. My son is grasping for air, and I am fully freaking out. And I remember that out of all of that, and I don't remember, it felt like I was on the phone forever. Like it felt like the conversation was, I was just like, get here now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. And the constant grasping for air as he's trying, and they're like, is he turning blue? And I'm like, guys, get here. And I'm freaking out. And I remember that in that scene of my wife having my youngest son, my healthy son, the one that nothing's supposed to happen to, like grasping for air. And I remember thinking, I'm going to lose him. And I remember thinking, what does that look like? What does my life actually look like if I lose him? I don't want to lose him. And in that period of time, I felt like God had to, like, told me, you need to trust me. It was that point where all that fear from years ago that was built up because of the miscarriage and because of my firstborn being sick and a lot of things that were happening in that birth and like it was that time where God told me, you need to give them to me. And when I'm telling you, like, I looked at my son, I looked at my wife, and I accepted the fact that my son wasn't gonna live. And I said, okay, God, not my will, but your will. And I had to sit back and say, I trust you. And if you take him, I'm still gonna serve you. I'm not going to walk away from here. I need to serve you. I want to serve you. I fully give myself to you. And in that moment, the paramedics walk in. And like I said, it felt like I was in a conversation with God forever. And when I fully said that, literally the paramedics walk in. She looks at him, which by the way, the paramedics were like God sent. Like they were so nice and they were so like helpful with everything. She looks him and she looks at my arm. She said, I don't need you to worry. He's gonna be okay. And I'm like, she started explaining to us that he has croup and we have to put a nebulizer on him and we have to open his lungs. He was grasping for air, and after they did that, his oxygen levels were okay. They went through all of that, and for the first time, like I felt fully like God in control. But it took me to surrender my fear. It took me to surrender my control. It took me to surrender my anger. It took me to surrender everything. And it took God to take me to a place where you yourself, me and my own strength, cannot fix what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And that was a difficult thing to do. But the moment that I did that, I feel like God was just like, okay,
Yeah.
I have that now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like 2025 for me feels like another, but he's done it before.
Yeah.
And I've seen him work. It doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah.
And it will never make it any easier. But I cannot fear what he's already gone ahead and done.
Right. We just don't see it yet.
Yeah.
And the uncertainty is always hard.
I had a pastor told me this a couple weeks ago. You were there. It's like, uncertainty is where God wants you to be in.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like being in uncertainty.
No. We don't like sitting in that space.
Yeah.
No.
Because but God.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, it's like I didn't ask for this.
Not at all.
I didn't ask to be a pastor.
Mm.
I didn't ask. I obeyed.
Right. Right.
But I do believe that obedience is the true, like, ultimate response to worship.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to fear, but I'm going to obey God and I'm going to give it to him. There's a lot of emotions, but I'm going to just surrender.
Yeah. Because the plan is already worked out.
Yeah. And so I believe that it's not only me, right? There's a lot of people. Some of us are still kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
because I'm not in that position anymore. I am in a position that I'm looking to tomorrow and it feels very uncertain.
Yeah.
But I have peace about everything because God has never failed me. He hasn't done anything wrong to me. And although I fail, he's still there waiting. So I'm going in 2025 with full confidence and peace that God will do what he needs to do in my family, in the church, the ministry, and my friends. But that journey is something that I honestly wouldn't wish upon people.
Yeah.
It's like, where God, needs to take you, he needs to take you. But I think it's a must for some of us.
Yes.
Like God needs to take you to a place where you are no longer in control. And sometimes that looks like,
Oh yeah, some of us have to be there to understand where he needs to take us.
yeah.
Yeah. That's absolutely true.
So I do believe that, you know, we have to come to a place of obedience. And even in the Bible talks about the story of Peter in the boat, fishing. And as he, the Bible talks about how he's fishing all night and has had no luck catching anything. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of things that I've done. There's a lot of experience and a lot of skills. You could think of Peter as a true fisherman that understood the, the, the weather, understood the patterns, understood the bait, understood what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, understood. And all of that might have had perfect conditions, but then why no results?
Yeah.
And then Jesus tells him, cast it one more time. It's like, okay, let me go back. I am the fisherman.
Yeah.
You're a carpenter. I've been through this. I know the experience. I know what it takes.
Yeah.
Look at the conditions. And
It's not
all of
gonna
that
work.
is, yeah, it is like, is not. And I think we're there. It's like, I've lived this life. You have not. And we like to just put that on God. For some reason, that is our conversation. And I'm telling you, I do it.
Yeah.
But Peter doesn't. He actually says, we haven't caught anything, but because you said so, I'm going to do it. Worship and obedience to God is something that we must do, even if everything around us does not make sense.
Yeah.
Because his word is true. The result of that was an amazing result, instant, but getting to that place of like, I know what I could do, but God is telling me to do something
Yeah.
different that is out of my control.
Yeah.
Or that doesn't make sense.
Right.
That is this path. It's like he's going to ask you to do things in this upcoming year, in this upcoming season, wherever you're at. And you're going to be like, okay. But it has to be the root of everything cannot be fear. The root of everything cannot be disobedience. The root of everything has to be true love to God.
That's good.
I wonder if that is our issue. Do we truly love God?
I think that I think that um our answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Um but then we get in these situations that we're like, okay, God. And I think when people get into an era of questioning and then there becomes and things don't go as they want them to,
Yeah.
then they get into a spirit of that's where the people get in a space of hating God because things didn't go the way. And that's where the blame comes.
Listen, at the end of the day, I would say that we are driven by purpose,
Mhm.
but you'll never fulfill your purpose in God if you're so concentrated in your own plans.
Oh, yeah. You have to release control of things.
Yeah. And I believe that is a difficult thing.
It is very difficult. I've been in, like, God's been working on that. I mean, he's always working on me with that, but it's a constant, and that's what I was saying, it's a constant thing because everything, I think that, when you have weaknesses, we all do, that it is it is a constant battle.
Mhm.
But I feel like over the course of the last month or so, God's really, like, leaned in
Yep.
on that aspect of things for me personally. And that, you know, like we the saying, "It is what it is."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to just I have no control over the situation. You have to just say, okay, God,
Yeah.
just do what it is that you want to do. And we're here for it.
Yeah. The ultimate goal is not what we want.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal is complete surrender.
Yes. Because you can make 25 scenarios.
Yeah. 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 And
none of them be right. And God's up there laughing. And he's like, would you just calm down?
I honestly, but here's the thing though, is like I honestly believe that as the church, we need to get to that place.
Yes.
Like we're so concentrated in how many people will show up. We're so concentrated in how many people are going to drive the programs that we have. We're so concentrated in like what the church could do for us. Like we need to get to a place of complete surrender. We need to get to a place of Holy Spirit control over everything in our lives. And then you will see how people, because they're being transformed by God. Like we have no control over that. People are being transformed and being impacted by God. But the church today like needs to come to a complete surrender. Like
Absolutely.
that is at the true heart of worship. That is at the core of it. So
And there's so much peace in that. There's so much peace in your life when you walk in that space.
yeah. I think you're right because I mean, even this morning as I was kind of just praying and I was just like, all right, God, um, I know that tomorrow is not, is very uncertain because I don't have, you know, a good idea of what it's going to look like, but I have peace about it. Like you answered me, when I call and said, what is it that you want me to do? And he said, I need you to do this. I need you to open this church. I need you to, he's answered to a question.
Right.
And then to say that like, okay, what does that look like for me? And uncertainty. But it's like, there's no better place to be than fully just like putting my hands up, right? And it's like, okay, I trust you. And I to stop blaming God and to start just looking for him.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like you said, the key of it's constantly working to it. It is communication, it is relationship, and it's just kind of like that is how you allow God in the inner circle. By just like, all right, God, like I trust you with everything, with my kids. Like I'm fearful, but I'm gonna put that and his word does say that love does cast out fear. So I have my love for you has to be bigger than my fear. It just
Yeah.
So
That's good stuff.
that's it. That's all I got. I got nothing else to think.
So if you're out there and you have something that you're dealing with that you feel like you need peace about or that you need to surrender 100% to God, we're happy to pray for you. And if you want to drop it in the comments, we would love to pray. Thanks for tuning in to Ordinary People. We hope these stories have inspired you to see the impact of faith in everyday life. We'd love to hear your thoughts and even your own stories. So connect with us wherever you're listening from on social media and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to share the episode with someone who could use a little inspiration today. Together, we can keep spreading the message that every story matters. See you next time.